Hi, welcome back to another episode of Abilene People, where we talk to the most interesting people in Abilene from all walks of life, doing all sorts of things. And today we have, I believe, one of the most interesting political candidates that Abilene's ever seen. Now, why is that? Because she's not running as a Republican. She's not running as a Democrat. She's running as an independent. And I am talking about BriTanya Brown. How are you?
Hey, Danny. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. So you are running as an independent. But before we get there, I just want to ask, who are you? And what do people need to know about who you are?
People deserve to know that I am a mama first.
Yeah, you got a couple of kids.
I got a couple of kids. There's two of them.
Yeah.
So
you got two for the price of one, right?
Two for the price of one. Boy-girl twins who are the light of my life.
Yeah.
And it's really the reason why I do everything. They actually are the ones who inspired me to run. They were like, Mama, what are we going to do? We have to drive from Stamford to Abilene to go to school. So, my daughter needs to get more support in the schools for her education. We think she's dyslexic, and we have to go where the resources are.
And so that was a big motivation for you saying, hey, I want to affect policy.
Yeah, they're like, Mom, why do we have to do this? And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, isn't it time that Texas cared about that?
Wow.
I said, yeah, it's about time that Texas cared.
Yeah, all right, cool. But you do live up in Stamford.
I do.
But we do count you as an Abilenian in the greater sense of the big country. And, you hear on Abilene People. And you are running in the race for the Texas State House of Representatives District 71, which means who your opponents are. And we're going to talk about how you'll get on the ballot as an independent here in a minute. But that would be on the Republican side, who won the primary, Jay Hardaway. And Jay won the primary against like 4 opponents without a runoff. That's pretty salty. That's pretty big stuff. Pretty impressive. And then on the Democratic side is Diana Luna. And I guess both of them. You've met both of them. Yeah. You've been in the circles and conversations with them. Do you like them? Or is this just your chance to say how terrible they are, how they don't, deserve any shine? And how great you are, but that's really not your vibe, is it?
That is actually not my vibe. I have always been a person of integrity and authenticity, and I believe that, what you do to others comes back to you. So, I've been raised to see the leader in other people and actually care about what they're going through. It takes courage to step up and want to represent people who you haven't really met yet. And I applaud anybody who's doing that. And I've been in circles and in conversations with Jay and Diana. We're out here fighting for the same folks, and we're hearing the same things. We just have different approaches on it. And that's what we're putting it to an election for, so that people can see themselves reflected in the leaders that they have.
And the podcast isn't a Texas Government 101 conversation, right. But I do want to dip our toe into that for just a moment. So Jay entered the Republican primary. He filed as a Republican candidate, and then he ran in the Republican primary. Diana the same as a Democrat. And so they won their party's nominations, and they'll be on the ballot for sure come November for the general election. But you have taken a different course.
I am.
You didn't file as a Republican or as a Democrat. You filed as an independent. And are you guaranteed a place on the ballot?
I'm not.
And so how do you get on the ballot?
So I am trailblazing a path of my own, as I've done on and off camera. So just being a leader in my community, I believe I'm always going to do that. But our two-party system favors that Republican or Democratic nominee to lead their party's values. But what I've seen, just being in this race, is that we are leading on some of the same issues that we're hearing from our district. And regardless of if you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're Texan. And we've got to figure out the common ground for all of that together. One of the things I think about, this political system and how I'm coming in here, not trying to shake up the status quo, but if you'd like to exit the matrix, come on. I would love to actually just think about how people are running for their community. Many of us are good leaders in our community right now, but it gets overlooked when we say, hey, are you red or are you blue? Tell me, pick a side.
So you've got to get like 500 signatures, and those people all have to be registered voters who did not vote in either Republican or Democratic primary.
Yeah.
So you're up against a challenge there, right?
Well, we only had, we had folks who came out and voted in the primaries, but it wasn't everybody who was registered. So I'm actually meeting my neighbors where they are to make sure that we can have representation that actually shows the difference of opinions out here in the big country. There are folks who are nonpartisan, who are independents right here in Abilene and across the big country. And that's who I'm reaching out to.
I want to talk about the two-party system and how, I've had this sugar stick conversation for a long time that it's a broken system. But before we get there, I just want to clarify, you got to get 500 signatures. Do you have some signatures already secured?
Yeah.
Can you disclose what that is? Can you also tell us what the deadline is for you to get 500 in order to get on the ballot for the fall?
So I officially started coming around and getting my neighbor's autograph, because this isn't about me. This isn't about making me famous or building a platform or starting a political career. I actually am telling folks there's somebody who's for the people who's on the ballot. And if you want to learn or teach me something, come on. Like, this is an open conversation. So those 500 signatures that I have to get, I got to get by June 25. June 25th, yeah. June 25th of 2026 is the deadline for me, and that opened just the day after the primaries. I'm getting all my folks who are already signed up on my email list to say, hey, when can I meet you? Where can I meet you? And let's get this done. So my goal for the end of March is 100 signatures, and I've got the queue. I've just got to get out there, beat the streets, knock the doors.
So one thing Travis can do in post-production of our podcast is put down on the screen your email address. Would that be helpful? Or do you have a website you want to point people to?
I have a link.
And what is that? And do this, because he'll put it right down where you're doing your hands, like on the camera. Like, so here it is, people. So yeah, practice that. Here it is. There it is. Yeah. What's the email address?
So I want you to get the information that you need. I have a few digital tools that I'm doing that on sway.com. You can actually follow me and understand like how I'm trying to build a care economy here in Texas and what else I'm voting for. When you do that, you'll go to vote-BriTanya-TX, I believe. Actually, let me verify that.
Yeah, verify. While you're looking it up and verifying, I want to ask you this. If you don't get 500 signatures, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but, what do you do then? Do you just say, hey, I want to continue to be active, I want to help, or you think there's no way I won't get 500 signatures, I will be on the ballot, vote for me?
Listen, I am building an army of mamas, families, who are building the economy for Texas right now, and they feel overlooked. Yeah. That's more than 500 people who I can get. And I'm not just focusing on Abilene. I'm going out to Potosi, Clyde, and all of the other little communities that
Clyde America. You're going out to Clyde America.
We're going out to the places that are in the big country so I can meet the people where they are. Yeah. Those 500 signatures are just a hurdle that I've been jumping over. I've organized across the state of Texas, and what it really amounts to is being able to talk with people over their kitchen table, or making sure that you can sit out on the couch and talk with them.
Are you finding people to be receptive to the conversation?
They're very receptive. Okay. They'll open the doors.
So here's my theory. I want you to prove me wrong or tell me I'm right, whatever. But I think our two-party system has for a long time been broken. I think it's perpetuated in its brokenness because it's largely populated by broken people.
Yeah.
People who have broken sense of morals or a broken sense of patriotism or dedication to the Constitution or not. Prove me wrong. Am I wrong?
I think we got good people out there, but we're fighting a battle that isn't just about like who's on the right or who's on the left. It's actually who is putting food on their table, and how people feel that is being able to talk with one another. Those folks who feel like they don't have a voice, they want to have a leader who understands them, who's been struggling with them. And I have real solutions that I can go in to the State House to be able to do that. Being able to represent care on the ballot was very important for me when I decided to run. And folks are looking to have the care that they need. Like we are working so hard to build the economy, but we don't have anything to show for that.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the points of the platform that I've heard you talk about, that I'm familiar with, doing the little bit of reading I've done. You're real big on children. You said already, the reason you got involved was because of your children. And I want to talk about that. What do you say about childcare in pre-K? How important is that? And what could somebody sitting as our representative in District 71 do about that?
Now, I'm running as an independent candidate, but I know I'm not alone when I say that parents, working families everywhere are struggling to find the care that they need so that they can get to work. And being a former childcare provider, educator here in Texas, I know that there are two sides to that coin and nobody's getting what they need. We don't have to fight over breadcrumbs when we have a surplus of funds that are available right here in Texas that can meet the needs of working families, of businesses to have their employees get the child care, get to work on time, and make sure that we keep the economy running. But the supply right now does not meet the demand. We have to have a legislature that is focused on building that for families so that we don't just look at people and say, hey, stop having kids, or hey, get grandma to do it, because care work is real work and it's been invisible for way too long. Moms are struggling and we don't have to do it alone. It literally takes a village.
And you seem like a really nice person. You seem like somebody who by nature is a collaborator and you want to bring people on board. You don't want to push people off board. You know, you're more of building the population, not Survivor where you're kicking people off the island. I get that, but inherent in what you're saying is a bit of reality check, because we have priorities that are expressed in our budget, and I'm hearing you say that the state budget needs to have a shift in priorities.
Yeah, so
is that fair?
Yeah, as a Texas House representative, I get to vote on the budget every 2 years. We get to prioritize how funds from the federal government that are matched with the state's funds are being allocated to things like schools, roads, childcare, healthcare, and making sure that every community is online with good Wi-Fi. And one of those things that gives me real tools to be able to say, hey, when I go in, I'm going to make sure that we have some support for the childcare industry, because the childcare industry holds up every single other industry in our nation.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, childcare is infrastructure. It's workforce infrastructure. And we need to make sure that our leaders are focusing on that. The economic case for childcare does not have to be in stats. It's in the way that people actually get to show up to work. And if they can't because their kid's sick and they don't have anyone to watch them, then
yeah. I was going to say, well, breaking it down for somebody like me who's just kind of explaining it to me like I'm a third grader. You're saying that if a mom can't find a safe place
to work
for her kid, then she's not going to be able to go to work, which hurts our workforce, hurts our economy.
Our businesses, makes the economy slow down.
Another thing I've heard you talk about is maternal health and infant care. Talk about that for a moment.
Danny, Texas is failing our mamas and our babies. We have mothers who are dying on the table in 2026. And that, as a birth doula, as a mom myself who had to go through these things with twins, like this is a high-risk pregnancy that I had to face those challenges alone and in a system that didn't take my insurance that I had at the time. Like, it's so hard for mamas to be represented, and we should not have to die to get our legislature's attention.
And is that disproportionately affecting minority populations?
Yeah. We cannot ignore the data. We can't ignore the facts that it is hurting Black women. And I will always be a champion for equal access in our maternal healthcare system. But we got to start where it's hurting folks the most.
What do you say to the skeptic? What do you say to somebody that says, "Oh, well, that's ridiculous. You just need to work harder, do better. You need to provide for yourself." What do you say to that?
I would say Mama's been working hard. Mama's up at night cleaning the dishes before everybody goes to bed and is making the next meal in her head before she even hits the pillow. So one of the things that I think we really need to focus on with the legislature is to make sure that there is enough money to get the maternal health care that women need. Make sure that we support our rural areas with recruiting OBs and keeping them in their communities so they can afford them. If we need to expand telehealth, that is something that we can do. Make sure that our insurance providers are able to provide that option to folks who are paying into the insurance system. And we also need to understand how Medicaid is working. 1 in 7 people in Texas use Medicaid. Our children rely on this resource, and we need to understand how to meet people where they are.
BriTanya, are you concerned that the gulf between the uber wealthy and the marginalized poor is growing? And if one of those is growing, the wealth of the uber wealthy is growing faster than ever before, is what I understand. Mm-hmm. But the size, the population size of our those who are marginalized and living in poverty, that's growing even faster. Is that accurate? And what are your concerns about that? That
is accurate. And that is because we are thinking of innovation, but we're not thinking about how it's impacting our communities. You talk about people being priced out of their communities. Like, we have this AI boom, and a lot of folks are wanting to do that.
Big conversation in Abilene, the state of the city, was housing, affordable housing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's a crisis, and we have to balance and strategically understand what the legislature can do to stop people being priced out of their homes. I'm a property owner, and I understand we want lower property taxes. I got that bill, and I was like, yikes, where am I going to? I got to pinch pennies to make this work. But I believe in paying those property taxes so that we can have things like our rural clinics and our hospitals and schools.
Just a reality check. Our representative for State District 71 is going to have a say in all of this.
Yeah, we get to write bills. We get to listen to our community. It's not just about like complaining about the issues. Yeah. Folks want to know that they are seen and heard at the legislature in Austin and in district at home. Okay. So we got to do that. We got to write it down, make it plain like Rebecca Tutu says, because if not, it never has the opportunity to become a law. And when we get that into a piece of legislation, we have to make sure that goes through committee and folks get up and testify and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. I can represent folks down in Austin, but I need for them to come with me and represent for themselves to say, hey, we got to fix this right now. We need this.
You've also talked about public education and vouchers. I'm sure you've got something to share about that.
Oh, yeah.
And are you concerned? Do you think that that's an issue that's going to go away, or do you think that's one that's going to, bite us in the derriere in the months or years to come?
I've been on both the side of private and public education, mostly specializing in early childhood and special needs. And that's where a lot of our families are like, hey, my child's not getting the support that they need in the schools. The teachers overworked, the classrooms are packed. We're not seeing the progress, and I feel like I'm failing my child. I'm a teacher and my kids go to public school, and I'm like, okay, how can I help? It takes a village. But right now, the debate is not parents against the school. It's not homeschool this. We have the vouchers here. They're right here in our backyard, and folks are going to be using it. So we need to understand what the data is. Is it helping? Is it hurting? One thing that I'm concerned about is our rural communities. Our schools are already underfunded. We need to make sure that the way that school money rolls down is based on enrollment, not attendance. I did this in the childcare industry, advocating for legislation that made childcare subsidies available based on enrollment, because we got to keep the lights on. The people at the schools get up real early. I see them walk in there every day, and they turn the lights on before the kids even get there. But if it's based on the kid getting there, we'll never have enough money, because so many things can happen that are outside of the schools, the teachers' purview. Like the parents have to get the child to school. And with a lack of public transportation, or, we're all facing so many repairs on our cars, like my tires need to get fixed right now. I want to make sure that I can get my kid to school. But right now, the reality is I'm driving 45 miles a day to get my daughter into a school that I believe can meet her needs. That shouldn't happen. We need to make sure that the legislature, when these vouchers roll out, that it doesn't hollow out rural school budgets, that teachers can actually teach, and they are being paid for what they need, that they get the help that they need inside of the classroom. Our aides who are in there helping to maintain and corral a class of 24, that is so important, and it's actually what's developmentally appropriate for our children. But we need to make sure that education policy does not destabilize our communities, that our tax dollars are actually going to things like helping our tiny Texans.
And a lot of District 71 is rural, you know, in smaller communities. One of the things you're concerned about is rural health care and elder care. And I would assume elder care is specifically a challenge in these rural communities. You know, I feel like I keep throwing, just issue after issue after issue, but that's kind of what your job will be as our representative if elected. What do you think about rural health care?
Y'all, we got issues. And I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I was overwhelmed with just understanding every single issue. But the majority of them I'm living. I'm actually going through the rural healthcare crisis. We have hospitals that are out there that are defunct and are not operating. We are also seeing a rising number of hospitals in our rural communities actually closing. And that is not by chance. It's because our rural communities are not funded at the same level as the urban parts of Texas. But when rural hospitals close, it's a ripple effect that, folks can't get the care that they need. They lose their job because they're sick and things like that. We can prevent these things from happening. The legislature has provided some support, making sure that there's bills that support the rural healthcare system, including how reimbursements go for providers, how folks can use their insurance. And they've been kind of innovative on, the level. But those bills are just sitting there. It needs implementation. Working families should not have to drive farther to get the care that they need. They shouldn't have to wait as long, and they shouldn't have to pay more or be surprised by what they're paying when they get the bill. So in the House, I want to say that I will be pushing for funding that will protect our rural facilities, that will support those coalitions of clinics who are out there caring for their communities. We have to understand how business works in healthcare. We should not focus on just the monopolies that are there, but also provide an opportunity for other care providers to come into our communities. We need to make sure that insurance and all of that in-network disputes gets hashed out before people get their bill. And we need to make sure that we support our veterans. We have veterans who have served our community. And I was just reading in the newspaper about 2 months ago, there was a veteran here in Abilene who said he was facing that, he had some neurological issues and he had to either go to St. Angelo or Lubbock when we have neurologists right here. Like we have the providers who are willing to care for their communities right here. But because of all this insurance limbo and all of that kind of stuff, people aren't getting the care that they need. And that's something that we can change.
Okay, so I want to ask you about infrastructure and safe roads, but I want to frame it this way. You're talking about, hardcore issues. I don't know, maybe there's a better way to say it, kitchen table conversation issues, man, But so much of the public discourse is about trans athletes or who's going to go to what bathroom.
Yeah.
How do you navigate those kind of issues that get people's attention, but really aren't what make the difference in the end? You really can't substantively compare those issues with providing health care for an elderly person or a veteran or child care or early education, can you?
So politics today is very performative, and I'm not about to enter that game because one thing I don't play about is my children and my community. I got to live here. You got to live here too. And I believe that regardless of what side of the aisle that you fall on, you should be able to get your basic needs met. And if our state legislature, which has been dominated by the Republican Party here, if anything, we have to see how that has shown up in legislation. I'm not blaming anybody, but as long as I've been alive, Republicans have been in control. And on either side of the issue, we have to understand it's not about people's identities in this work. We all have to show up to work on Monday. We all have to put our babies to bed at night and then figure out how we're going to pay these bills. When it comes to what the state legislature can actually do, I'm not going to be over here promising things that I can't deliver on. I've already delivered on things and worked with the state legislature, passing childcare ballot measures, housing policy, as well as working on a national level, doing multi-state campaigns for fixing our roads and making sure that housing is affordable in every community. But that has to be done in coalition. I don't have, this magic wand on day one, and I'm not promising or putting stuff in your mailbox saying, hey, I'm going to fix this. All of those other issues, those are your personal preferences. And I believe that regardless of who you are, it's my job to show up for you. If you come and talk to me and tell me you're facing something, I'm going to say, hey, I care enough about it to do something.
What do you think about, you mentioned earlier the AI centers and the power grid. I think you referenced it earlier. It seems like we touched on it briefly. What do you think about all of that? What do you think about sustainable energy?
Yeah.
What do you think about the windmills? What do you think about solar? What do you think about all that?
You know, my partner actually works in the windmill industry, and I've learned a lot. You know, it's a very hard job to do, and it's very dangerous. I'm always worried if he's going to come home or not. But Texas is leading in energy in both solar and wind production, and that's really powered by rural communities right here in our backyard.
Yeah, it is.
We have big tech who's coming in our backyard as well. And one of the things that I can focus on when y'all vote for me is regulation. They're here. We have to understand how to regulate it so that we aren't pinching pennies to pay our bills and keep the lights on. I think, you know, just with having some kitchen table conversations with my neighbors, Texas should be able to have transparency in all costs so that we're not shocked when we get the bill. We need to protect our households who, you know, are struggling right now, like to update their homes and keep them up to date. Our power grid needs to be, we need a plan to really stabilize that and make sure that communities are not in the dark just because we have a winter storm. Those things are what people are asking for. We're not asking for free electricity. We're not asking for free water. We're asking for our families to be taken care of in the houses that we pay for every month. Like, we need a sustainable power grid, and we need to make sure, whether it's wind, solar, oil, gas, that all of those things are factoring in how hard is it for families to afford it. The other thing about roads and safety is that we should not have to worry about if we're going to get home safely. It's one of the most, the amount of crashes that I've seen lately in Abilene and across the big country, it really pulls on my heart as a crash survivor. I went to ACU, got my degree in 2.5 years in political science and speech therapy, and I was actually met with a challenge in my last year. I was hit by a drunk driver in broad daylight right over there off South 14th by the pawn shop, and every time that I cross that, I remember something. This person had somewhere to go, and they were too busy to slow down, and I got hurt. A child with special needs that I was taking care of at the time also got hurt, and I had to spend 2 years in neurotherapy to learn how to speak again. So the fact that I'm just sitting here talking with you, Danny, I've reached success, but that shouldn't have to happen when we have technology that will keep people in line and following the rules of the roads. We can stop super speeders who are going up and down our streets with technology like intelligent speed assistance. I'm working on a multi-state effort right now to lead that across the nation.
Well, now you're talking about trying to get how fast I can drive, and I should be able to drive as fast as I want to drive.
Hey, our cars are meant to go whatever speed, but it doesn't mean that it's right.
Well, you know, probably shouldn't have put on my little silly voice, but you're talking about real issues.
Yeah.
It seems like to me a lot of our politicians and those elected just talk about issues that are a lot of waste of time. You know, when our power grid failed in 2021 during the apocalyptic cold storm, you know, when that all happened, I couldn't help but think that some of the politicians that were ranting and raving about, we got to fix this, are the same of the very ones that were wasting a heck of a lot of time talking about trivial matters that just really don't matter. They just don't matter.
Yeah, we need to stop the politics and stop performing. Yeah. Like, people really are hurting out here. I remember that Texas storm, and I was like in my house with my ex-husband, and we had babies under the age of 2. And I was like, what am I going to do? It was 4 days out in Stamford where we didn't have any running water, heat in our house. And my baby's fingers started turning dark. And I was like, oh my goodness. So there was a little fireplace that was there, but it was boarded up because we were renting this house. We were hoping to buy it. But I took an axe and chopped down that in unbelievable mother strength because my house literally was not doing well. And as much as I fight for people in my community, I'm going to go to the Texas House and continue fighting and let it be axe or let it be.
I was about to say, you're going to take an axe?
I'm going to take an axe and I'm going to chop down the things that are no longer working for us. Like working families deserve someone who's going to show up for them. And I'm going to be that person in the Texas House.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things as we draw to conclusion that I just think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. You have three interesting things about you that are not usual and things we don't always see on a ballot in Texas in November. So here we go. One would be you're running as an independent. Another would be you're a woman. And number three would be that you're a Black independent woman. Which of those do you find is the more challenging as you run in District 71? And if you want to reframe the question, because I'm asking it poorly, take all the liberty you want, but I think you see what I'm getting at, because you're going to be running against a white man, a Latino woman, so there's a minority woman, but you're going to be running as an independent without the power or the bankroll of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. What's the bigger challenge?
The challenge is making all of this stuff that I'm tasked with having. I got my notes here. I'm like all the issues and what I want to say. None of that really matters if I can't be authentic. I am somebody who's been on the floor with children, playing and having fun, building a world that we can thrive in. And I'm not afraid to get down and dirty, regardless of the political parties that I have running behind me. I'm here for the people, and I want to make sure that good leadership doesn't get overlooked because I'm running as an independent, because I'm a woman, because these are just the way that I show up in the world. I can't change none of that. And I'm not asking people to change their party or their politics. I'm asking for folks to care, not just about yourself, but about your neighbor, because we are called to love our neighbors. We are called in this position. I am called to be quick to listen, to be slow to speak, to be slow to anger. But a lot of these issues I'm angry about. I'm angry when I see Jackie, who's a mom, struggling to get a housing voucher, get a placement here because the AI boom is pricing her out of homes, or landlords won't rent to her. I'm very upset that people are being hurt by all of this. And I'd just like to share a few notes. There's Jamie, who's a mom that I met at a park, and she was there saying, hey, the price of infant formula or all of these things that she needs to make sure her baby grows up nice, and she's worried about those things. That angers me. I met Josh, who's a dad at the park, saying, I need a vacation. Like, I work so hard, and him and his wife are going to go out to Slitterbond. I want to meet people where they are. If it's homeschooling vouchers, like my friend Ashley is trying to understand how she can homeschool her 5 kids. These are real issues that folks are saying, hey, BriTanya, can you help me? Jill, who works in the hospitals here, is talking about being able to have a wage and being able to have a regular schedule that supports her family's needs so that she can make repairs on her house that's falling apart. Or Shelly, who's a teacher who quit here because she couldn't use the health care that she pays for. All of this stuff it makes me angry, but it's righteous rage. And if anybody can resonate with that, I'm here to put the party politics aside, to stop performing, take off the mask, come talk to me at the park, in the school pickup line. Tell me about your recent grocery store bill, because I know we're all feeling it. I might be running as an independent, but I know I am not alone when we're out here fighting for our lives on every single front. So if you care about yourself, if you care about your neighbors, if you care about what are we doing here in Texas to support working families, then I'm your candidate. I'm the one who's going to go in and build something like we've never seen before. I'm someone who's not going to just push my party's politics or my own personal beliefs down your throat. I'm actually going to listen to you. I'm going to understand what you're going through. And even though it might not be what I'm going through, it's valid. And it deserves a response from the people who are in office who can do something about it, whether that's on the budget, whether that's bringing you in to testify for something, getting a study or a pilot done. We can do that at the Texas House. We can make sure that we work across the aisle. We can build coalitions. I've been doing this. I've been in my communities across the state of Texas, and I've seen how it works. And it starts when we put people first, not thinking about our profits, not thinking about our party, just people. And so I'm grateful to be on Abilene People. I'm not just here for Abilene People. I'm here for the big country. I'm here for Texas, and I'm here for working families like me. And if that's too much for me to show up, hey.
Not too much at all. BriTanya Brown. Wow. Yeah. What a conversation. And you got to get 500 signatures. Your goal is to have 100 of them by the end of March.
By the end of March, 100 people. Listen, I got folks in my DMs. They are in the DMs saying, hey, where can I meet you? I just met up with a mom at Sun Moon Cafe.
And you're physically gathering these signatures.
Yeah.
It's not like
you might not see me on the social medias, even though I know how to run them. I like people's privacy. One thing that I am very encouraged by is that folks have sent me private messages on Facebook, Instagram, and even just coming up to me in the grocery store. Hey, aren't you that person who's running? I got a face that you can't forget. I got a smile that you won't ever think twice about. And just meeting people where they are is very important. But what I've heard is I've voted Republican my entire life because my daddy told me so, because my family told me so. But out here, I'm struggling. I need access to those benefits for SNAP. I need affordable health care. I need to make sure my kid can get into the public school that's up the street so I don't have to drive 45 miles. I need that. How can we fix this? I'm going to vote for you. I'm hearing something that I haven't heard before, and I respect people's privacy. We can have as much debate about the issues as we want to, but when it comes down to it, I know one thing is for sure. I'm going to listen to people who are living the issues today, and I'm going to fight for them when I get into the house. And can't nobody clean a house like a mama.
No argument. No argument. There you go. Well, you heard it, Abilene, right there from the independent running for Texas House District 71, our representative. So I want to thank BriTanya Brown for being our guest today. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank our ace producer, Travis Corrigan, making it all happen over there on the switcher board.
Yes.
And join us again. We will have another interesting person. I don't know if we can have another person as interesting, but we'll try right here on Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.